my name is Johnny. I'm a believer. I struggle with alcoholism and codependency.
Hi, my name is Cheryl. I'm a believer who struggles with codependency. I can't say that as fast as Johnny can.
I know. I have to say it fast because if I don't, I trip up over it. All right. Well, hey.
Hi.
If it's not one thing, it's the other. We said
Absolutely.
originally we've got you here tonight.
We're just trying to switch things up a little bit.
Exactly. So we are so glad to have you there. I'm going to do a little this real quick. Sorry. Hi, everybody. How are you? Yes, we are so fancy.
Are you ready now?
We are so fancy. Woo!
Plenty of time for questions to start coming in, though.
Holy smokes!
Right?
Yeah. If you have any questions other than did you get a haircut and why can't we hear you? Please leave them in the comments. So
we do want them to tell us where they are.
People are already
listening.
checking in and tell us where they're from.
That's so much fun to see where everybody's from.
I know. I love that part.
Yeah.
I love that part. But don't forget to tell us or ask us any questions as well. We do have Marnie on the other side of the camera. Say hi, Marnie.
Hello.
We are, I promise you, going to get her on this side of the camera. I promise you.
She keeps saying no, but we'll do it.
Hey, a few announcements before we get started. So if you have any questions, ask them now. The first one is we are about to start our next season of traveling, going on the road for our one-day training conferences. We're going to be in Houston in a couple of weeks. Then we've got Sacramento, San Francisco area after that. And then, is it Seattle after that, Marnie?
Yes.
Yeah. So those are the three that are open right now. So you can go to celebraterecovery.com, click on events, and come to our one of our one-day training conferences. But there's also a need. So we like to try to go to all of our different regions. We split up the country into 5 different regions. And one of our regions, we're having a hard time finding a church that can suit our needs and that we can come alongside and do a training conference in. And that's in our North Central region. So I've got all the states over here to my left. I'm going to read them off so I don't miss it. So if you're in any of these states and you think your church could help us host a one-day training conference either in February or March, if you would email Marnie, MARNIEB, at saddleback.com if you're in North or South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, or Michigan. So especially if you're in Wisconsin, where I was born, so
you can
God's
try
country.
to check it out.
Yeah, and last time we were in Wisconsin, I got to go to Lambeau Field, and the Packers won.
I know you've told us.
I may have said that a few times. I tell everybody I can't. So again, North or South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, or Michigan. If you would email Marnie B at saddleback.com. Marnie is also in the chat in the comments, so she can answer any of those there as well and let you know what we would need and all that kind of stuff. We'd really appreciate it. One last thing before we get to questions.
You go right ahead.
We've got our summits. Our 3-day summits are coming up. Last week, Pastor John spilled the beans, told them what the...
He did.
I know.
I saw him.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You were watching.
Yeah.
So, do you want to say it?
It's the Summit of Joy.
Summit of Joy. And so we would really love for you to join us for this summit. We've got 2 of them. One is in Tennessee, and that's July 15th through the 17th. And the other one is going to be here in Lake Forest, California from August 5th to the 7th. And it's the same thing, either coast, which either one you can come to. 3 amazing days of brand new keynote talks from the main stage, brand new workshops, brand new lab experiences, some really cool stuff. So we'd love for you to join us, as well as Susanna Poetry and Skit Guys and great worship and all that stuff.
Lots of planning already going on, so we're getting ready.
That's lots of words in not a very long amount of time.
And no breaths in
yes.
between.
So I would love to take a breath, Marnie, while you ask us a question.
Okay. Let me pull one up. I'm so sorry. I wasn't prepared. I was getting all the texts about...
Yeah, so there's a lot of people who are reaching out saying we'd love to host her one day, and that would be very cool. But
Anyone from Wisconsin yet?
I hope so. I mean, but I don't want to go there now.
No,
I don't want to go to Wisconsin now. It's freezing.
Unless
anybody has
they're
tickets. Unless everybody has tickets for Sunday's game, then I will come tomorrow. And so if you have tickets, just put them on will call, and I'll be right there. I would.
Nobody knows what football team you like the best, do they?
No, no, of course not. They don't know that I'm a Packer fan at all. Yeah, I always tell people there are people in Texas in this chat room right now, so this might be dicey. But I always say in our house we root for 2 teams: the Packers and whoever's playing the Cowboys.
Wow.
Yeah, just a lot of people just got off.
Yeah, exactly. People forget that. Okay, any questions?
Yes. If you can you talk a little bit about what happens at the summit? What can somebody new expect?
Great question. So summit, we got it coming up. What could somebody expect?
We have a lot of inspirational talks, for lack of a better word, and then we have a lot of training talks from up front, and what I mean by that, where the whole group is together, and then we break out of the sessions into workshops where you can get specific questions and training and an ability to kind of work things through for your Celebrate Recovery. We can take you from starting a Celebrate Recovery to growing it and improving it. In addition to, like you said, with the Hosanna Poetry, the skit guys, lots of the best worship ever.
Yeah, and that's not even bragging.
No,
that's just true.
It's great worship.
Yeah.
There's just nothing like it. And my grandson, Max, was asked what his favorite day of the year was last year, he said the summit.
I love that.
So I think it's got something for everybody, but particularly from newcomers or amateur Celebrate Recovery. That's what I like the best. It fits all areas.
Yeah.
Can you think of something that I missed?
I would just say if it's your first time, if you're planning on coming to one of the summits this summer, is you can expect to be tired when you leave because they're 3 full days. We pack it in, and but it's an amazing time. For me, as an adult, I don't get to go to summer camp anymore.
Right.
And I remember being in high school and growing up at the church and going to summer camp and kind of having this mountaintop experience and having this really filled up experience. And the summit, which, by the way, summit, top of a mountain, really does that for me. It really serves as a refresher for me. We're working really hard during the summit, but man, I come away fired up.
We're still having fun.
Yeah.
And everybody that comes say that they're not tired.
Right.
They're enthusiastic because
Yep.
we keep thinking by day 3 they're going to be tired, and they're still on their feet and ready to go. So.
Yep. All right.
And there is something about connecting with so many other people in recovery.
There really
something
is.
Something about being in a room with that many people.
Yeah, there really is.
Recovery and want to help change people's lives because of Jesus Christ. So it's hard to beat.
It's sort of like having a big, homecoming of our forever family where we all get together.
Right.
And we get to celebrate what God is doing. And so many new CRs start there.
Yes.
And so...
And you may make friends from across the country that you stay in touch with
forever. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, Marnie, any other questions?
Yes. So Shannon has a question about the Journey Continues Step Study.
Okay.
It says before you answer the questions, it says there's questions for reflection and discussion, but I was taught that you don't discuss the answers. Can you please clarify?
Yeah, so what I would say is the discussion is still going to be guided by the guidelines. So whenever you're in a small group, Celebrate Recovery small group, we have our 5 small group guidelines, and one of them is no crosstalk. So basically those questions are more reflective. They do help you get started so you can share on them, but discussion, meaning I share, you share about what I shared, that's still not going to be again, I think so. I think what would really be a good idea is the next time we have Pastor John on here for he and I to kind of go through the Journey Continues a little bit and explain it again, because it's been a long time since we've done it. That's a great question, but no, you're still going to answer the questions in the step study the way that you would in Journey Begins, which is 1 at a time, 3 to 5 minutes each, using I and me statements with no crosstalk, no fixing, and those kinds of things. So
and still learning your listening skills, which is so important to your healing.
Yeah. I do want to say, Greg Garrison asked when I was going to shave my beard. The question for that is never, Greg. I am the recovery Samson.
I've been trying.
If I shave my beard, I lose all my power. And so there's lots of Bible verses about that.
He doesn't care what his mother thinks, obviously.
Yeah. Hey, because he's not with us, do we want to give a quick Pastor John update? Just let him know how he's feeling, how he's doing.
He's doing very well.
Yep.
Last time he had his MRI, there was no cancer present, so we're very thankful for that. Still has some side effects from the immunotherapy, which he's still on, but generally speaking, he's doing really well.
But we'll take it for all the good news we've been getting with the cancer being, radical. So we're very, very excited. So just want to give that quick update. All right, any other questions, Mark?
This is an interesting question from Kimberly. Is there any possibility of a live stream of the summit for CR Inside people?
Oh, wow, that's a great question.
Whoa.
We have not done anything like that before, Kimberly, and we would have to check out all the technological reasons and all that kind of stuff and have to kind of coordinate with, but I love it. I love the idea, so we'll definitely explore it. Yeah, Marnie is our director of conferences, and she's on the other side of the camera. She said challenge accepted. So
talk to Danny and see what that would involve too.
Yeah, and by the way, if Marnie says challenge accepted, if it's possible, she'll get it done. It's actually, I'm a little scared actually.
That would be very cool though.
It'd be very cool. Yeah, no, we've never done anything like that before, and if there was a group that we would live stream to, that would definitely be
it would.
there. Maybe even some military bases. That'd be kind of cool too.
Yeah.
All right, great. What else, Marty?
Okay, so I'm not sure if this was asked already. What is the difference between isolation and alone time?
Yeah, so we've talked about that briefly, but it keeps coming up into my mind, and so I think it's
Really?
something
Okay.
something to talk about. So we always tell people in recovery, and I'd love to get your take on this too. We always tell people in recovery to not isolate.
Right.
But you and I both are pretty introverted, and like our alone time.
Well, need our alone time,
Yes.
actually.
Yes. So what do you do? How do you discern alone time versus isolation?
When I'm isolating, I have this feeling that I'm not doing something I'm supposed to do.
Okay.
Don't feel like this is when I'm using alone time. It's because I feel like I'm accomplishing something. I need it. It's often got a lot of prayer involved, and the isolation is more when I'm withdrawing. And I have this feeling that I'm not reaching
You're not
out
doing
to
something you
people that I
should be. Yeah.
that I should be reaching out. It could be something I'm stewing over in particular. If it's something I'm having trouble letting go, that's more isolation than alone.
Mm-hmm.
If you find yourself thinking that your alone time is healthy, but you're alone every day for 4 or 5 hours, you might want to take a look at that. Again, an accountability person would be nice to have.
Right.
Like, I'm having my alone time, but I've been being by myself for 5
Right.
days, 5 or 6 hours, and this is what I'm doing. The accountability person will probably say, time to come to a meeting and reach out a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's different for each person. It's hard to put a definition to
Yeah,
it.
so Pastor John last week talked about a little bit about how Jesus withdrew and often took
Right.
alone time, and that for all of us, it's part of our program, right? Reserve a daily time with God for Bible reading, self-examination, and prayer,
Right.
and that's best done alone,
Right.
just between you and God. We often call that a quiet time, and I think that alone time, or even just taking time to withdraw, I need it, right? There are times where I just kind of need to not have people around so I can recharge. I mean, like I said, I think I'm a pretend extrovert who's really an introvert.
Right.
And so I think that it's if that's part of our makeup, we need to take it. And I would even say for those extroverts who are like, I don't like to be alone. I like to be with
Right.
people from sun up to sundown. Really, for them, that might even be more important.
Right.
Because taking that alone time, there's sometimes reasons why we don't want to do that, right? And so I think that there's lots of benefits to alone time. For me, I agree with you. For me, isolation becomes I'm deciding to not work my program.
Right.
I'm deciding to not do what I should do. I'm avoiding those phone calls, or I'm
I'm
not
a little
letting
angry or a little hurt, but not doing anything about it,
Right.
other than spending time by myself.
maybe enjoying it.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, and I think of isolation a lot like if you watch the nature channels. And they'll always have, for whatever reason, he's always British, the narrator, but he'll be saying, a gazelle has separated himself from the pack, and that's when the lion takes that gazelle down.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's isolation. It's where you're better with family, with other people around you, whether that's your physical family, your biological family, or your church family. You're better with other people around you. And when we isolate ourselves, we set ourselves up for attack. And, the Bible says that the devil prowls around like a lion. And so for me, I would say if you're feeling like you need a little alone time, cool, take the alone time.
Right.
But don't allow that to become isolation.
And I'd say if you're having trouble determining if you're isolating or just spending time alone, is start tracking how long you're doing that. You'll have people around you that go, no, that's not alone time, that's isolation.
Yeah.
That's too much time. If it's getting to be more time than you used to have when you were feeling better, then
Yeah.
I just think keep track of it.
Well, this actually brings up a good thing too, because we talk about sponsors and accountability partners. We talk about these are two key roles of people that help us stay sober or active in recovery. So a sponsor is somebody who has more recovery time than you do. They've completed the 12 steps of the 8 principles. In Celebrate Recovery, we say they should be a believer and they should also be the same gender as
Right,
yourself.
right.
Accountability, you're going to have one sponsor typically. Accountability partners, you have many of them. They could be
Right.
ahead of you, behind you, or at the same
Yes.
side of you
Yes.
in recovery. Again, I believe they should be the same gender as yourself, but I think they're kind of having believers, non-believers is okay, because if you're have other believers that can strengthen your faith, non-believers you can witness to and you can try to bring them along.
sure.
Right. But accountability, whether it's a sponsor or an accountability partner, only works if you let it work. You can have
Which means you have to reach out.
Right, and you have to be honest,
Right.
And so you can have the longest list of accountability partners in the world,
Mm-hmm.
but if they ask you how you're doing and you say fine, who cares, right?
And if you're not asking someone, if you're starting to wonder about isolation versus alone time, and you're not asking and reaching out,
That's a great
You're probably
point.
going to isolate.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Your accountability team is the
Yeah.
person. I love the accountability team because when we started
too.
Celebrate Recovery, there weren't enough people at Celebrate Recovery that had any time of healing.
Yeah.
So we were all accountability partners in the early days. And that, I think, is still my favorite.
Yeah. Yep. So I would just say, one last to kind of wrap this up. If you're feeling like you're isolating, you're probably isolating. Like if you feel like, am I isolating? Probably.
Yeah. Too much time.
Yep. All right, Marnie, what else?
Somebody is asking, Greg is asking, do you remember the day and the year the very first Celebrate Recovery meeting started?
Oh, heck yeah.
It was
Okay.
November 21st, 1991.
Yep. Charter Hospital, 43 of us were there.
Yep.
Pretty cool. We watched Pastor John teach with a mouthful of cotton. That guy had to drink a bottle of water while he was up in front of everybody.
But he did it.
Yep. The cool thing is that in just a little bit, RCR will be here, and there'll be a couple members of the band who were there that very first night as members of the
And
band.
next year, it'll be 30 years since that very first night.
Yep.
Yes.
So pretty cool, yeah. So
I'm getting word that you guys are breaking up.
I'm sure we are.
Okay.
I'm sure we are. Yeah, we're doing our best. If we're breaking up, we're sorry. I see a solid line here for the mic, but we're doing our best here with what we have, and we got about 10 more minutes. So stick in with us, and we'll see. We're doing our best. What else, Marnie? Got any other questions?
Yeah, here's another really good question. Will there ever be a best practices manual, booklet, or handout produced for CR leaders?
No, there won't be.
Okay.
I think we change and grow so much.
Yeah.
That's hard to do.
So just to give you a little background on that question, we have something called the DNA of an Authentic Celebrate Recovery, and you can look that up online. It's under the About Us section on the CR page, or maybe even just as About. You go there and you can read about that. And it's a very simple, 6 statements about if you're going to call your ministry Celebrate Recovery, you're going to say yes to these things. Things like Jesus Christ is the one and only higher power. Things like the 5 small group guidelines are read and followed every time. It's got some stuff about the curriculum and some different things in there as well. If you notice, there are things that aren't in there, but that we would call a best practice. So having worship, using different ways of doing things that we would call a best practice. That if you came here on a Friday night to celebrate recovery at Saddleback, you would see happening. But a church across the street or down the road or in Wisconsin, where we want to go for a one day, we could have the DNA of Celebrate Recovery be the same, but little things might be different. I'll give you a good example of this, what we call chip night. So we have these coins. They're plastic until you get to a year. There are sobriety markers, and they're like 30, 60, 90 days, and then they go to months and all that kind of stuff up to many, many years. And how you give those chips out would be called a best practice. In fact, even using the chips would be a best practice. It's not a DNA if you do it in large group or if you do it in open share group. It's a good idea to do them and to have a way of doing them, but how you do it is really up to each individual church. So why won't we publish what the best practices are? Because once we do, those become DNA. Once we publish those things, those become, you have to do it this way.
So much of it depends on the individual church.
Yes.
The things that's
Yes.
what's wired into the way they do things.
And the needs of the people who are coming.
Yes, and the size of the group.
So much of it.
Yes.
So much of it. And so as long as you follow the DNA, the rest of it, you'll figure out. Now, here's a great resource for you, though. There's a couple that I think I really want to point out. One of them is free. They're called Your State Rep. We talk about them every Facebook Live that we do. Again, on the app or at our website, you can click on Find My State Rep. These are men and women who are volunteers who want to help you start and grow your Celebrate Recovery. So if you have questions, get a hold of them. Next thing, come to one of the one-day training conferences or the summit. And then we've got something called the Advanced Leadership Training Guide. If you go to pastors.com, just search for Celebrate Recovery or Advanced Leadership Training Guide. You can find it there. And that is it's a big notebook. It's a solid notebook that covers so much stuff. And here's what we do know, though. Somebody could have read the Leader's Guide, read the ALT, which was what we called the Advanced Leadership Training Guide. They could come to the one day, they could come to the summit, and they're still going to have questions.
Right.
Because this is a dynamic ministry and things change. And so lots of good stuff there.
But for the person that asked about the summit, what they can expect from the summit, this is a great time to learn some of those things.
Yep.
The DNA versus the best practices.
Yep. Somebody asked, I can see some of these questions, and so I want to answer this one. Somebody asked why the participant guides are 4 individual books instead of 1 book like the Celebrate Recovery Inside Guide, and they said it's less to kind of keep track of. So I want to just answer it. It's a great point. It's like that because it makes the movement through the steps and principles markable, meaning you can say I finished a guide,
Right.
and so you can kind of go I did that. Also, it makes it less expensive because you may be in a place where you can only buy one book at a time instead of buying all four of them at a time. We do our best to keep that price as low as possible. Understand that's not set by us. It's owned and copywritten by Zondervan, and so they set those prices. And then really good place to go, though, is pastors.com. They're very competitive, and if you can show them that you get it lower other places, talk to them about it and have that conversation. But that way, somebody who maybe they're not sure they're going to be able to commit to the whole year, but they want to try, they can buy a book instead of all four of them. But my favorite is that, again, it really helps you see that you're going through it. If you go through a big, thick book, it can kind of feel like, man, I've been in this for 6 weeks and I haven't even cracked the spine.
Well, bite size is less intimidating
Right,
too. So
right.
you just take that one.
Because
workbook.
in
You
the
can do
early
one
days,
workbook.
before there was curriculum, you and Pastor John looked through tons of different curriculum, and some of them were 400 or 500 pages,
Yeah,
and
it
it's
was
just
way too intimidating.
Yeah.
We wanted to make it easy.
yeah,
And affordability was a big thing in
Yeah.
the beginning. And I've given the First Step Study book away to people.
Yeah.
So to get them acquainted with it, it's not overwhelming. I'm just say, here, I've talked to you about the Step Study before. Here's a book as
right,
an example.
right. Now, why is it like that then for the Inside Edition? And somebody asked earlier, what's Celebrate Recovery Inside? It's inside jails and prisons. So why does the CR Inside version like that? Well, because the men and women who are inside can get shifted from facility to facility kind of on a moment's notice. So we try to give them one thing so they don't have to carry as much. Two, nothing can be stapled inside prison, so we had to bind it that way. And three, if you ever have an inside participant guide in front of you and then the other one, we had to put it on lower quality paper, and everything is kind of bound differently so that we can have that be more affordable for churches to give to prisons. So we have a lot with Pastor Danny, who's our national director of CR Inside, and our Celebrate Recovery Inside reps. A lot of people want to give something to prison. Mm-hmm. Well, this way we can get more of those to people.
Right.
And so that's why that's the way that it is. Great. What else, Marty?
Somebody's saying, how do you continue your recovery if your spouse continues with negative behavior?
Man, that is a great question.
Oh, you just have to keep taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
It's the codependent dilemma of taking care of yourself when that feels sometimes hard to do when you're taking care of everybody else. But keep going to Celebrate Recovery. Use your accountability team. Keep going to church. Keep praying. Let your spouse see the changes that you're making, and hopefully your spouse will be inspired. Maybe not at first. Sometimes they're angry over the changes, so sometimes you have to wait for them to get used to the fact. And I think you have to let your spouse see that you are going to do this.
Yeah.
That no matter what their behavior is, you are going to go to Celebrate Recovery. You're going to take care of yourself. You're going to reach out to your accountability teams and make sure that you are doing what you need to do for yourself.
Yeah. Now, what's difficult is if, let's say, that both of you are in recovery for the same issue. You both are seeking out recovery for alcoholism or chemical addiction issues or things like that. If you've decided to seek recovery and your spouse has decided that they're not going to, that can be difficult because they may do things that trigger you. And in fact, they may try to help you relapse,
right,
because they don't want you to change. They don't, because if you think you have a problem, then even though you're not saying it, what they're hearing is that if you do the same stuff, you think they have a problem too. I know this because when I got sober, a friend of mine said, "What? So I'm an alcoholic too?" Mm-hmm. I said, "I don't know, man." Right? But so people take it that way when we make our changes, and so that doesn't mean it's impossible, but it means you're going to have to work a really good program. And what I would say to you is you are going to need a high level of accountability.
Absolutely.
You're going to need a high level of people who can say, hey, when you go home, if your spouse is using or if your spouse is drinking or if your spouse is whatever, call me and let me walk you through that. And so, I think, like I said, it is possible. I would really recommend extra meetings for you as well to get around people who are healthy that you can kind of have a check-in and those kinds of things. And really finding a good support team is going to be paramount to you.
It not only is possible, it happens a lot.
Right, it sure does. Yeah, yep. All right, Marty, let's do one more question.
This is an easy one. Becky is saying, just to clarify, there is no crosstalk during step study groups, right?
Yes, so that is so easy, but it also is so hard because it's
Yeah.
easy to say yes, there's no crosstalk. But to explain what crosstalk is can be a little bit more difficult. So to answer your question, there is no crosstalk. And if you read the guidelines, again, we have the 5 small group guidelines that we read and we follow at every time we get together for an open share or a small group or a step study. And if you're a leader, really your number one job is to facilitate these guidelines. And so one of them is that there is no crosstalk. Crosstalk is when 2 or more people engage in conversation, excluding all others. So you and I, if we were in a group, which we couldn't be because our groups are all gender specific as well, but if 2 people are in a group and this person says something and then they say, thanks for letting me share, and the next person goes, I really like what you just said. That's actually crosstalk.
Right.
Now,
right.
I know it doesn't seem like a big deal. It seems pretty harmless. I just said, great job. But what if a couple weeks later we're feeling a little bit more comfortable with each other and I can go, I don't think that was right. That's none of my business.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so crosstalk is something like that. Crosstalk is asking questions while somebody else shares. Crosstalk interrupting. Oh yeah, I want that place too. Oh, isn't that cool? Whatever those things are. It's taking someone else's share and sharing about that in yours as well.
Now in a step study, it's more difficult than an open share group because by a certain level you become close to each other.
Yes.
You feel more comfortable sharing your opinions, but it's still no crosstalk.
It's actually harder in a step study
to not crosstalk.
To not crosstalk
That's what
because another reason is often we're going to be answering the same question. Mm-hmm. And so it seems like it would save time to say, oh, just like Jim, I said the same thing Jim said, but that's crosstalk. Now, I want to tell you some things that are not crosstalk because this has been a series of debates for a long time. For those of you who don't know, this is my mom. So my mom...
They probably figured that out.
I figured they did too. My mom and my wife, Jenny, are both zealous about the crosstalks. I think that's a good word, right?
Yes,
and
that's probably right.
And they are, by the way, there's another 2 women along with Marnie you don't want to mess with. And and when they talk about the crosstalk, or about guidelines, for a long time people said you can't pass a tissue because that's crosstalk. And the idea behind that is that it can stop someone's emotion.
Right.
What do you think? Is that crosstalk?
No, of course it is not.
I agree.
You can pass a tissue
to
help a person. If they take a moment, that's still okay. You haven't interrupted them. Give them a chance to have a tissue. Neither is laughing. If somebody says something funny, you may laugh.
Yeah, now what we try to distinguish is laughing at someone versus laughing at a joke, right? So if somebody says something funny, it's okay to laugh. Active listening, which is what you're doing right now. You're nodding along with me as I talk.
Absolutely.
We've had people say that's crosstalk.
Now, that would be impossible for me to stop.
Can you even imagine how hard that would be?
I can't.
If you think that that's not, I want to challenge you to talk to somebody that you love who knows you very well, and when they talk to you, don't active listen.
Head.
Just sit there and look at them. They're going to think something's weird. You're going to think something's weird. It's part of how we are. In fact, when I worked at a restaurant, they told us to use it for our advantage. We'd say, can I get you a key lime pie or a chocolate sundae? Because you start nodding and then other people start nodding. They go, I do want a key lime pie.
Oh, that's funny.
And what I would do when I was ready to go home, do we want a key lime pie or a chocolate sundae? No? Okay, well then I guess we'll just close the tab. And so, a lot of that is kind of ingrained in us. So, but 2 people talking, interrupting someone, sharing about somebody else's sharing, asking a question, all of those things, there is no crosstalk. And the reason behind that is I have my 3 to 5 minutes to say whatever I want to say, not get fixed, not get scolded, not get judged, not even
get a Bible scripture.
None of it. Yeah, what I find is that counselors and pastors actually have the hardest time with this.
Yes.
Because counselors want to fix, and so do pastors. We want to give you the Bible. You said something wrong about God, and I have to fix it. No, you don't. The Holy Spirit will do his job. And that person can say whatever they want to say for 3 to 5 minutes. And then we go on to the next person sharing.
Absolutely.
Yep. So I think we need to get you and Jenny on one of these one day, and I'll just ask you guideline question after guideline question, and then we'll have the definitive video that we can just
We're going to do something like that at the summit.
I know,
But
yes. Anytime somebody asks a question about the guidelines. By the way, speaking of the summit, you and Jenny are doing a workshop together
on
codependency, which is awesome.
And we're going to talk about the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship a little bit too. Yes.
Yeah. My favorite thing about that is that I don't need it because I'm not a codependent.
No, not a bit.
Really quickly, as before we go, somebody asked, what do you say to stop somebody from cross-talking without offending them? It's super easy. No cross-talk, please. That's it.
It's hard. The hardest thing for me about Celebrate Recovery is learning to facilitate a group. But when you see the damage done when you don't follow the guidelines, it's pretty easy to learn pretty quick.
Yeah, what I would encourage you to do, by the way, is to get together with other leaders of inside your CR, and practice that. Practice saying no crosstalk, please. Practice saying please wrap up your sharing. No fixing, those kinds of things. I understand that it's intimidating, but here's the key about not offending anybody. Do it every time it happens. If you choose to do it for some people and you don't for other people, then it will feel offensive. Yeah. But if every time someone crosstalks, you say no crosstalk, please, you will definitely keep from avoiding anybody.
And by the way, that's the main thing to keep your Celebrate Recovery safe and have people keep coming, is following the guidelines. Yep.
Well, guys, we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Thank you for coming and being a part of this. Love it when you're here. And if this is your first time watching us live, we're so glad you joined us. We do this every Friday night at this clock, 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern. If you're watching us on YouTube, I apologize for those first few minutes that you missed while we were messing around with our mics. If you don't feel, if you feel comfortable on Facebook letting people know about this, you can share this post or give it a thumbs up. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And I don't have anything else.
That sounds good to me.
All right. Well, bye, everybody. Thank you so much. See you next week. Bye.